Hello, this is Kelsey from Kels Reads Things at Anna Porter Public Library in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. And today I'm very excited to discuss with you In 5 Years by Rebecca Searle. In 5 Years is an adult literary book with a little bit of romance sprinkled in. Dani Cohen has a plan for everything. What she doesn't plan on, however, is a dream of her life 5 years into the future in a different apartment with a different engagement ring on her finger and with a man who is not her current fiancé. After waking from this strange premonition 5 years into her future on the night of her current engagement, Dani is determined to let it go and move on with her life and stick with the plan that she has in place. But she soon learns that you can't plan on all of life's surprises, those great and terrible. This thought-invoking novel puts the reader through twists and turns much like life does itself. Love, sacrifice, heartbreak, and growth are all featured in this beautiful, thought-provoking novel. Okay, so that was a general plot for In 5 Years. It follows Dani, as I mentioned, who is probably about in her mid-20s when the book starts. She is on her way to becoming a big-shot lawyer, a part of a huge firm, and she eventually succeeds in this. And one thing that I like specifically about this novel is in most romance books, the main characters have to usually pick between career or love, and in this case, that's not what occurs in this book. Dani does get to keep her career, but kind of at a cost. So now I'd like to discuss a few of the things that I really liked about this book. The number one thing is the characters. All were really believable, but aside from Dani, most were pretty two-dimensional. It was a shorter book of about 300 pages or less, so there wasn't a lot of room for personal growth, but that's not really what the book was about. It was more about Dani's growth herself and her experiences, and also a message of you can't plan for everything and life always has surprises here, there, and everywhere. There's also a focus of appreciating the here and the now, which is something that I appreciated from the novel. The writing style was exceptional. There is prose and poetic stances throughout the book. It was beautifully written with messages about life and its injustices, as well as just general facts that we all have to learn to cope with. The flow was fantastic. As I mentioned, there was kind of a prose writing style, and it's also written from the perspective of Dani, and I thought that the way that she spoke to the reader really matched up with her personality type. She's very much a type A individual, and the way that the book is written, even in a poetic stance, it's still very short and to the point, much like Dani herself was. The messages in the story were exceptional. You can't control everything. You can't control people's reactions to the things you do or decisions that you make or their perspectives. There was also a message of love is not linear. It's not something that's necessarily guaranteed or promised. It was definitely a love story, but not in the classical sense. There was a lot of love and compassion and empathy expressed between the characters, which was beautiful. And finally, the ending was really well done. It left on a note of uncertainty, but also hopefulness for Dani and her journey. Now I'd like to highlight some of the main quotes that I felt really encompassed the novel and its message. On page 168, a quote about love. It feels impossible how much space there can be in this intimacy, how much privacy, and I think maybe that is what love is. Not the absence of space, but the acknowledgement of it. The thing that lives between the parts. The thing that makes it possible to not one, but to different. To be two. On page 183, another quote about love. You mistake love. You think it has to have a future in order to matter, but it doesn't. It's the only thing that doesn't need to become at all. It matters only insofar as it exists, here, now, Love doesn't require a future. And finally, a quote I picked on page 225, and this is Danny's voice. I used to think that the present determined the future, that if I worked hard and long, I'd get the things that I wanted. The job, the apartment, the life. That future was simply a mound of clay waiting to be told by the person what form to take. But this isn't true. It can't be. So that was a very brief description of the things that I liked about the book and a description about the book itself. There's not a lot I can say about it without giving a lot away, except for it follows Danny, who is aspiring to become a very successful lawyer, who ends up having to make sacrifices, but ultimately some of the largest sacrifices she's ever had to make. And it was just a beautiful book that made me laugh, it made me cry, and it made me think. It was a very thought-provoking novel, much like what I just read, The Midnight Library. Both were very inspiring, and I recommend them for readers who really enjoy literary-specific novels, modern literature for today's readers. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this short book review video today, and I look forward to discussing more books with you in the future. Hopefully after Christmas, I'll be ready to discuss Written in the Stars by Alexandria Bellafleur. Thank you so much and have a wonderful afternoon.